With threats to our nation waiting around every corner, adaptability is more important than ever. When conditions change without notice, quick strategic thinking is crucial. And with obstacles consistently impending, determination is essential in overcoming them. It's this willingness, decisiveness, and resilience that sets Marines apart. With our fighting spirit, we don't just fight battles, we win them. Marines are the constant our nation counts on to fight the unknown. And through adaptable problem solving, we do just that. Learn more at marines.com.
Getting engaged is a moment worth cherishing. A one-of-a-kind ring that you design at Blue Nile can help your love sparkle. Just choose your diamond and setting. When you've found the one, you'll get it delivered right to your door. Finding the right engagement ring can be nerve-wracking. At Blue Nile, you'll have the expert guidance needed and a diamond guarantee that ensures you're getting the highest quality at the best price. Cherish all of life's moments and save up to 30% at BlueNile.com. That's BlueNile.com.
Step into the world of power, loyalty, and luck.
I'm gonna make him an offer he can't refuse.
With family, cannolis, and spins mean everything.
Now, you wanna get mixed up in the family business.
Introducing The Godfather at ChumbaCasino.com. Test your luck in the shadowy world of The Godfather slot.
Someday, I will call upon you to do a service for me.
Play The Godfather, now at ChumbaCasino.com.
Welcome to the family.
VGW Group. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
You couldn't move this week in the world of sport without passing another sporting landmark. Yes, 200 days to the Paralympics, 100 days to the European Canoe Slalom Championships in Lee Valley, and 50 days to the Diving World Series in London. The big events keep coming, and we'll keep discussing them. This is Anything But Footy, a podcast dedicated to Olympic and Paralympic sport, and telling the stories of those who compete and take part week in, week out, not just every 4 years. I'm Michael.
And I'm John, and in the next half an hour or so, as coronavirus, Nike and Russia doping continues to dominate the agenda again for this episode, we'll cover some actual sport as well. Hockey Pro League, Sailing World Championships, basketball, boxing and modern pentathlon. It is Olympic and Paralympic year after all, as Michael said. And if we do miss your sport, get in touch with us at Anything But F on Twitter or message us on Insta and Facebook. Subscribe to the podcast and you won't miss a moment. And if you like what you hear, give us a review because it helps it get noticed by more people.
And don't forget, you can always find us online as well and send us a message via our website. That's anythingbutfooty.com. Anything But Footy, your Olympic and Paralympic sport podcast. Now, in episode number 41, we talked about coronavirus and the impact it's having on world sport. We brought you news that the World Indoor Athletics that was slated for China has been postponed by 12 months. World Cup skiing was cancelled. Formula E have cancelled their race that was planned for China as well, and Formula One are monitoring the situation. We also brought you news that the Chinese women's football team are currently in quarantine in Australia, where they're due to play Olympic qualifiers. Now, this week, Tokyo Olympic organisers said they were extremely worried about the outbreak, which has spread to over 20 countries now. They have discussed the spread of the virus at a special meeting this week, and they said the organisers of the Games, together with the government, the city authorities, the various organising committees and the local and regional authorities need to work together. Remember, Tokyo for the Olympics will be welcoming around about 10,500 athletes, the volunteers, the staff, the media and the spectators all over the coming months. Japan estimate they'll have 40 million extra visitors during 2020 for the Olympics and the Paralympics. The IPC have also been discussing coronavirus this week. They said they were encouraged and confident about preparations. They said coronavirus would have minimal impact on the Games, but they will continue to monitor the situation. The Paralympics, of course, 4,000 athletes across 22 sports. And this is a very real and very current situation, isn't it, for the organisers of the Olympics and Paralympics, and something they really need to be getting a handle of right now, 5 months out from the Games, John.
Yeah, and I think it was right that they came out and said that they were doing this. And as you say, Craig Spence, the IPC Chief Brand and Communications Officer, says, you know, it was right that Tokyo 2020 have established an internal task force to look at this. I thought it was interesting where they said the organisers of 2020 said they were extremely worried that it will dampen the expectation and the excitement to the build-up of the Games. And I think that is a valid point as well, that actually it could actually put potentially people off from getting excited about it. You've got a team announcement that you're going to this week with Team GB, Michael. I'm sure the question will be asked as, have you any fears about coronavirus going out there? And I remember that exactly the same thing 4 years ago as we built up to Rio and Brazil, where Zika became an issue. Ironically, it was on February the 1st, 2016, so virtually the same week as we have been in the last few days, was when Brazil stood firm and said they would not cancel the games because of the Zika crisis. Now, the World Health Organization, late in May 2016, also stated that it should go ahead at that point as well. And we often say it, there is always something for the games to be concerned about, whether that was terrorism, as it was for London 2012, or Zika for Rio 2016. But you're right, Michael, this is very, very different. Zika was only a real danger to pregnant women and men returning home afterwards, but the spread of coronavirus and how quickly it's spreading is something that Tokyo 2020 have to be aware of, and they have said that. The other thing I did tend to agree with Craig Spence about, where he said it's important to know that we put this outbreak into perspective in terms of cases and try to calm people's fears. Fear spreads much faster than any virus, and currently, according to the World Health Organization, there are less cases outside of China that we should be concerned about. So I think he's saying, let's put it in perspective at this moment in time, despite saying it's right that we have the internal task force. And 2020 is saying, look, we don't want this to dampen the expectation and the excitement of the games, because going into this year, we didn't really have any concerns about Tokyo staging the Olympics and Paralympics, did we?
No, not at all. But I think one of the issues over the past week certainly is obviously Japan itself, with proximity to China. The country of Japan is now approaching 100 cases of their own. That does include passengers and crew who are quarantined on a cruise ship in Yokohama Bay at the moment. And researchers at the University of Hong Kong have been speaking this week, and they said that they feel coronavirus will peak late in April, early in May, which of course will be right on the eve of the Olympic Games. Of course, the Paralympics have a little bit longer, if you like, to deal with this. So I think the situation is for the organisers now that they'll need to just put some protocols in place, won't they? They will need to have some discussions about what they're going to do in terms of whether they're testing athletes, not just athletes from China, but also athletes from other nations. Should test events continue to be held in areas affected? As I said, Japan itself is approaching 100 cases as we speak at the moment. So should those test events continue to be held? And as you rightly say, the difference between this and the Zika crisis, which was affecting Rio in 2016, is the coronavirus, as I understand it, and I'm not a doctor, is spread through coughing, sneezing, physical contact. That is the belief. Now, that risk will increase then in those what I would call densely populated areas. So what do I mean by that? I mean when you bring 100,000 people together in a sports stadium, for example, or 20,000 people together in a sports arena. And there is nothing like the Olympics or the Paralympic Games for bringing large groups of people together. They're going to be together in airports, they're going to be together in hotels, they're going to be together in venues, they're going to be together in areas of Tokyo where big screens will be erected. There's no other event on the planet that brings large groups of people together, and that then in turn could help or spread this virus more than anything else. So I think it's right, and I think it's correct that both the IPC and the IOC are looking at this, and they are now putting some plans in place to ensure, of course, that the Games can go ahead. It would be very, very surprising to me, 5 months out from the Olympics, if Tokyo doesn't go ahead as scheduled. And the Japanese Prime Minister this week has said no talks or plans are being considered to postpone or cancel at the moment. So that is coronavirus, and I'm sure we'll be talking about that more and more on Anything But Footy as we get closer and closer to the Games. As I said right at the start, the 200 days landmark to the Paralympics has passed. Also this weekend, another returning subject, and that is the issue of Russia and drugs, and the World Anti-Doping Agency has called for a public hearing, which is pretty rare actually, by sport's highest court, which is the Court of Arbitration for Sport, to judge the 4-year suspensions faced by Russia for their persistent cheating. Now, the Court of Arbitration for Sport, they are expected to hear the case within weeks, and the request has been to hold it in public to ensure that everyone hears the arguments and understands the processes. And a statement signed by the British Athletes Commission and bodies from Canada, Germany, Denmark, Norway and the USA have all backed this, as have the organisation John Global Athlete.
Yeah, they've basically said athletes have lost trust in the sport and global anti-doping movement. They feel they've been let down and that confidence is at an all-time low. So I think we would agree with Global Athlete and the other countries that you mentioned, the British Athletics Commission, that, you know, there has to be some kind of closure to this case, if you like. Let's hear the case in public so we can all understand it. We all know what's going on. And that we get a decision quickly, because that's the other thing that the athlete groups have said, that they need to speed this up. And we've said it week in, week out at the moment, in recent months, Michael. The decision must be well before the Games, which, as you keep saying, is now less than 6 months ago. It's 6 months to go, as the decision will directly affect every athlete. So that is what needs to happen. Crucially, they want to trust the process, says this statement, and trust the system, but they want that open hearing. And I think that you have to kind of agree. And probably the understatement, I thought the biggest understatement in the WADA statement from Director General Olivier Niglia was, this has generated huge interest around the world. Because, you know, it has, and it needs sorting once and for all.
Yeah, that verdict they're saying is due in May, 2 months before the Olympics. It's unclear at the moment whether this dispute between two institutions fits the Court of Arbitration of Sport ruling on public hearings, because the precedent that people are talking about at the moment is when CAS met publicly to decide whether to ban Chinese swimmer Sun Yang, and that case took place last year. WADA were basically appealing the FINA decision, FINA saying that Sun Yang could continue to swim on after alleged doping rule violations. It was streamed online, the media attended the case, and we are going to get a verdict on that very shortly, we understand. That is slightly different because that is an institution and an individual. This is two institutions. And I think if this is going to take place in public, as I said, to ensure that everyone hears the arguments and understands the process, it looks like CAS might have to, if you like, bend their own rules slightly. 3 judges are going to sit on this one. Personally, I think to hear it in public would be a massive step forward and would help in that openness, that honesty and that integrity that I think has been sorely lacking in this whole episode.
Just get on with it. Come on, Get on with it.
Get on with it is the message from Anything But Footy. We've got another returning story now. It's definitely episode number 42 of Anything But Footy, but it could well be episode number 41 or 40. But these stories continue to rumble on, and we continue just to bring you up to date with the very latest. Nike, following the clarification from World Athletics on what can and can't be worn on your feet in elite track and field, have this week released 3 new shoes. The Alpha Fly for marathon running, the Viper Fly for sprint running, and the Victory shoe for middle distance running. And I mention this because Gemma Reekie, who's potentially going to be a Team GB athlete representing Great Britain and Northern Ireland, set a new British indoor 800 metres record, shattering her personal best by a massive 4 seconds. She was wearing new Nike prototype shoes. Her time, 1 minute 57.91 seconds, would have won her a gold medal in the outdoor championships in Doha last year. Now, her coach has said her shoes will be available soon. That's one of the rulings from World Athletics, is these shoes need to be available on the open market for a certain period of time before an athlete can wear them in an elite event. He also said, the coach, that they do meet new regulations as well. It's been quite the week for Gemma Reekie, I have to say, who also set women's mile records and 1,500 metres records in New York. We could be seeing more records tumbling during 2020, and Gemma Reekie at the moment looks like one to watch ahead of Tokyo 2020.
So Reekie certainly setting the pace. Unfortunately, Mo Farah won't be. He's picked up an Achilles injury, so won't now be taking part in the London Big Half on March the 1st. The twice winner sustained a minor injury during training. Farah will instead continue his preparations for the summer season in Africa, but he vowed to be back in 2021.
Now, we are going to return to track and field later on in this Anything But Footy podcast, but just to wrap it up for now, details of a new indoor world record in pole vault. American-born Swede Mondo Duplantis soared 6.17 metres on his second attempt at the indoor tour meeting in Poland. The world silver medalist broke Frenchman Renaud Lavilleni's record from 2014. He's been breaking records since the age of 7, and congratulations to Great Britain and Northern Ireland's Harry Coppell, who jumped 5 metres 80 for an Olympic qualifying standard, just short of the British record of 5 metres 86.
Superpod 2020, raising money for sport relief. 2 days of great comedy and sporting podcasts. Desert Island Dicks, First and 10, Sports Spiel, Anything But Footy, the Dredgeland Podcast Spectacular, and more. Saturday 7th and Sunday 8th of March at The Social in Southampton. And you can be there too. Free entry until 7 p.m. and then ticket only from 7 p.m. Tickets available now at superpod.co.uk. If you can't be in Southampton, the whole event will be streamed live online on your smart speaker and on Facebook Live. Find Superpod UK on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram and use the hashtag SuperPod2020. For more information, visit superpod.co.uk.
And we are really looking forward to seeing you in Southampton for Superpod 2020, helping out sport relief as well. You're listening to Anything But Footy, the Olympic and Paralympic Sport podcast. Great Britain will not have a basketball team at Tokyo 2020. They've been in qualifying action in Belgrade over the past few days. Great Britain's women faced Spain in a match they had to win in order to qualify for the Olympic Games. But despite a spirited comeback, they lost 79-69. Spain had beaten Korea and lost to China in their other matches. Spain will qualify. Unfortunately for Great Britain's women, as well as that defeat, they did lose to Korea and to China as well. It means that their dreams and their hopes of appearing at the Olympic Games, remember, they've never qualified a team for the Olympics. They did take their place in 2012 as a host nation, but those dreams are over now for another 4 years.
It was incredible, Michael, to see them in tears before the actual first match of those 3 matches qualifying, which of course had been moved from China back to Serbia because of the coronavirus. But they were in tears because they were trying desperately to get to Tokyo to prove that they wanted funding, and because British basketball doesn't get UK sport funding, and they were in tears before, and I'm sure they'll be in tears now after that defeat.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, a big weekend as well for Olympic qualifying for a couple of sports that you say there who are, facing crucial funding decisions. Basketball is one. Ice hockey beginning their qualification series across the weekend as well ahead of Beijing. And you have to say, don't you, what a game changer it could be for those programmes if they could qualify automatically teams, but not to be for Great Britain's women basketballers.
Might not be for Great Britain or Para-GB in Paris, but even in Tokyo, because wheelchair basketball has been removed from the 2024 Paralympics and could be dropped for Tokyo in 6 months' time, less than 200 days' time, as Michael's been saying, unless changes are made according to the IPC. Now, it all surrounds the classification of athletes who compete effectively, fairly in the sport. International Wheelchair Basketball Federation defines eligible impairments differently to the mandatory list of eligible impairments agreed on by the International Paralympic Committee General Assembly. So the IPC say they've taken the action now, as they've asked for it for a number of times to be changed, and it hasn't happened. Andrew Parsons, IPC president, said, "We appreciate that wheelchair basketball is one of the most popular sports at the Paralympic Games, but this does not mean the IWBF is above the rules." Now, I do like the IPC. They had the balls to throw out Russia from Rio, unlike the Olympics, just weeks before it happened. And this is strong governance too. But will wheelchair basketball be at Tokyo 2020 or Paris 2024? They've got some tough decisions to make, the International Wheelchair Basketball Federation.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think the IPC have shown balls, as you put it, time and time again on these big decisions, something that the IOC hasn't. And that brings me on neatly to another sport which, of course, had its participation in the next Olympic Games in doubt for a long time, and that was boxing, of course, because there were serious question marks over whether boxing would take its place on the programme. And the IOC bent over backwards, I think, to try and get boxing on the programme. A little bit like I can't imagine a Paralympics without wheelchair basketball. You can't imagine an Olympic Games without boxing, can you? It's always one of the real highlights. Going back to 2012 and boxing that we went to see at the Excel Centre in London, it was fantastic. The atmosphere when people like Katie Taylor of Ireland and Nicola Adams of Great Britain were fighting was absolutely unbelievable. And superstars have been made from Olympic boxing, as we know. People like Anthony Joshua, Muhammad Ali back in history as well. And this week, 13 boxers have been named by GB Boxing for the Olympic qualifiers at the Copper Box Arena, taking place between the 14th and the 24th of March. I'll run through the men's team first of all. Gal Aliafai, Peter McGraw, Luke and Pat McCormack, Sammy Lee, Ben Whittaker, Chevin Clark and Fraser Clark all named. For the women's team, Charlie Davison, Karis Arting-Stool, Caroline Dubois, Rosie Eccles and Lauren Price have been named. Now, Charlie Davison is a really interesting one for me. She came onto the programme in January. She's only back boxing after a 6-year break, and she spent that 6 years bringing up her 3 children, and now she's on the verge of going to the Olympic Games. Tickets are available if you want to go down. 10 days of great boxing there. Boxing Road to Tokyo is the website. 350 boxers going to be taking part. 77 places for Tokyo. And we always say that when you see the boxing at the Olympics, the boxing tournament, you've only got the creme de la creme, because they've had to come through a really, really tough qualification procedure. So essentially what you see at the Olympics, that last 2 or 3 bouts, is very much the end of what's been, a year-long programme to try and get there. The men's GB team include 3 World Championship medalists. That's Pat McCormack, Peter McGraw and Ben Whittaker, all winning medals in 2019 in Russia. The women's team includes the world champion Lauren Price and also another medalist, Karis Arting-Stool, as well. Good luck to all of those involved.
It sounds like some real strong names in there, names that I recognise, that we've been talking about on Anything But Footy for the last year or so, but also, as you say, that new name, or the returning name as well after 6 years, that's an incredible story. And if she could qualify for Tokyo, you can imagine the media are going to lap up that story in the weeks and months to come before the Games. Now, the fight for a place at Tokyo 2020 Olympics is hotting up in most sports, as we've said, with modern pentathlon no different. The season began with a thrilling Peridot indoor competition in Budapest, with gold medals for Great Britain and Germany. Joanna Muir from Britain retained her women's individual title, and in the men's individual final, world number 3 Marvin Dogue from Germany managed to do what he failed to do all of last season and defeat the world number 1 Britain's Joseph Chung, who was forced to settle for bronze. So looking good for Britain in the modern pentathlon ahead of Tokyo.
You're listening to Anything But Footy, the Olympic and Paralympic Sport podcast. Don't forget, we'd love to hear from you. You can get in touch with us via our website. That's anythingbutfooty.com. You can always find us on Twitter. Join the debate there. Give us a follow on Twitter. We'd love to get your messages at AnythingButF. You can find us on YouTube, on Instagram, and on Facebook as well. Don't forget, you can download us on Google and Apple Podcasts. Find us on Spotify. Please like us, please rate us, and please comment about us as well. Tell us what you like, what maybe you don't like about the podcast. Let's return, as I said, though, to track and field. And British Athletics have named 46 athletes this week onto the Paralympic World Class programme for 2020. Remember, this is a delayed announcement because of the very late staging of the World Para-Athletics Championships in Dubai late in 2019. So essentially, this is the list of funded athletes ahead of the Paralympics in Tokyo later on in 2020. The list includes 20 medalists from those World Championships. Names on the Paralympic podium list include familiar ones like Libby Clegg, Hannah Cockcroft, Kadina Cox, Sophie Hahn, Dan Greaves, Richard Whitehead, Johnny Peacock and many others. But there's one name not on the list, John.
Yeah, double Paralympic champion from Rio, Georgie Hermitage, has retired from athletics through injury. The 30-year-old, inspired by watching London 2012, also won 4 world titles, including defending her T37 400-metre title at a packed London 2017 World Championships. Georgie admits it's a heartbreaking decision to retire, but despite our best efforts, my body isn't recovering from injuries, which means I'm not able to train or compete to the level that's required. And she'll now, the good news, spend more time with her young daughter Lily, who's, quote, excited to get her mum back.
Sounds nice. Don't forget, Anything But Footy has a spin-off podcast called Great British Bosses. Now, Season 2, Episode 3, was the boss of British Sailing, Ian Walker. You can hear that interview now. And we've got a real rad guest coming up. I'm stoked for the next episode of GB Bosses. I'm not going to tell you who it is and what sport, but there might be a couple of clues in it for you there.
I've no idea what you're talking about.
Well, it's rad, and I'm stoked. That's all I can tell you. But the next episode of Great British Boss is coming soon, and Ian Walker of British Sailing is still there, episode 3 of season 2. And a flurry of sailing world championships this month ahead of Tokyo 2020. 7 of the 10 Olympic classes are going to be in action shortly in Australia. They include the 49er class, Dylan Fletcher and Stuart Bithell of Team GB. You can say that because they have been selected. In the 49er FX, Charlotte Dobson and Saskia Tiddy also are selected by Team GB. They're going to be in action as well. And then it will be the turn of the NACRA 17 fleets. John Gimson, Anna Burnett, all feature, of course, as I said, sailors already selected for the Olympic Games in July and August in Tokyo. The laser class, though, well, that is one to watch from a British perspective. At the World Championship, 4 British sailors will be competing. Only one will be able to get that Olympic place, though.
Great Britain's men and women hockey team recorded their first wins of the new Pro League season. The Olympic champions, with Lily Ownsley making her 150th international start, thrashed New Zealand 3-0 in Auckland in their first match. The British men drew 1-1, but missed out on a bonus point by losing the shootout. However, captain Adam Dixon then scored twice in the second match, beating the Kiwis 3-0, and the British women drew 2-2, but grabbed 2 points with a 5-4 shootout win. So both British teams coming away finally with some victories from Down Under, and they'll next be in action away to Belgium on April the 28th and 29th. And promise me one thing, Michael, you'll never ever say rad in a podcast again.
I'll never ever say rad in a podcast again. Got a lot of time for Lily Owsley, haven't we? Because she you'll recall, joined us by the bins in Rio.
Oh, lovely Lily. It wasn't pretty, but it was much needed by the bin store.
Yes, we're talking about when Great Britain won their Olympic gold medal, of course, and we had to drag Lily Owsley and Sam Queck, wasn't it, out to the bin store to carry out our interviews, because that was the closest place that we were, by the rules and regulations of the Olympic Games, where people like us are not allowed to record our interviews inside Olympic venues. The closest place we could go to record those interviews was the bin store, and there was Lily and there was Sam with their gold medals twinkling round their necks, leaning against the wheelie bins full of Rio rubbish and talking to you, probably being asked rubbish questions.
Yeah, probably, yeah.
Well, in what appears to be a time quicker than Dina Asher-Smith running the 100 metres in a pair of Viper flies, we're done for another week. Please tell somebody about Anything But Footy over the next 7 days. Get them to subscribe, especially as their precious Premier League has currently gone all Ross and Rachel. Yes, football is on a break. Please like, share and subscribe to us, and do get in touch through social media or on our website at www.anythingbutfooty.com.
Sports Social Podcast Network.
With Lucky Land Slots, you can get lucky just about anywhere.
Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to... Has anyone seen the bride and groom?
Sorry, we're here. We were getting lucky in the limo and we lost track of time.
No, Lucky Land Casino, with cash prizes that add up quicker than a guest registry.
In that case, I pronounce you lucky.
Play for free at LuckyLandSlots.com. Daily bonuses are waiting. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details.